Hey y'all, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. Today's video is another fun one. It's a continuation from a video I did not too long ago called the monochromatic palettes, and it was me going through my collection and sharing with you guys all of my monochromatic palettes that I own and, you know, things that I like about it and that sort of thing. I'll leave that video linked up here and down in the description box. But in that video, I mentioned, I was like, hey, I have a lot of palettes that are like two different, they're not monochromatic, but they have two strong colors within it. So like a duo color story, having just two colors that are very strong in it. So I was like, would you guys like to see something like that? And I got an overwhelmingly positive response, so that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. I went through my collection and I pulled out all of my very strong kind of duo type of color stories that have two colors that just stand out and is the theme of the palette. So not monochromatic, but not, you know, a big old color story, not a rainbow, not even like 4 or 5 different colors all combined, just two. Like I try to stick to that very, very strongly, and we're going to go through them and I'm going to share with you guys what I like about the palette, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's just going to be a fun video. So with that all said, let's go ahead and just get right into it. I have a big old stack in front of me. There's no rhyme or reason. I'm not ranking them or anything. I'm just going to share with you guys all of the duo toned, dual color story type of palettes that I own in my collection. Alright, top one, we got a couple that I haven't tried yet, but I did go through my new palettes and I was looking through there to make sure I wasn't missing any, and these two stood out to me. But first one has to be the Gimme Glow Christmas Morning palette. This palette, if you open it up, has a very strong grungy red and green color story. Now, it's not the only two that you see in there, obviously, but the whole theme of the palette I feel like is so close to that type of red and green, like grungified, so deepened. So I think the other colors around the red and the green really add to that theme and add to that color story. So that's why I did want to mention, especially as we're getting into the winter season and as we're getting into the Christmas season, I did want to share this palette and I am looking forward to trying it. I purchased this at the beginning of the year during a sale. I just haven't got around to it, but I was like, you know what? It's almost Christmas. Let's go ahead and pull this out so we can actually try it. So hopefully soon I will have a review for you guys, because this palette has always intrigued me for the longest time before I finally got around to purchasing it. And yeah, it just looks so very fun. So I can't say anything about, you know, how this actually performs and whatnot, because I haven't used it yet. But from my past experience with Gimme Glow, I'm expecting a really nice matte formula that's very intense and very pigmented, and then the most amazing pigmented and smooth metallic formula with their shimmers, because their shimmer formula is one of my favorites. So I can't wait to get into this, but I did want to mention them as one of my duo tone, because when you open it, I feel like it just jumps out as being that very strong Christmas, the red and the green, but make it grunge story, so I wanted to mention it here. Next up for the palette I haven't tried is Kaleidos Flower Punk palette. Oh, I totally missed the boat on this one, but as you can see, there's a very strong color story. Not so much like a color like two different red and blue or something like that, but the theme of this is just very grunge up here, but then very pastel down here. So I wanted to mention it here because, like I said, I know that it's not exactly just two colors in here. There are a couple different colors with the pinks and whatnot, and this being like green to, you know, mustardy acid green. But still, when you look at the color story, it has those two sections of these being pastelish and very light in area, and these being very grunge and whatnot. So I wanted to mention it because it's one of those palettes that I think of anytime I think of a very opposing and very drastically different two-tone type of palette. This is definitely one of them that I think of, so I wanted to mention it. This is another palette I hope to try and get a review out before the end of the year, because I just keep going back to it. I keep thinking about it and wanting to try it, and it's just such a unique color story. I can't wait to see what types of looks I can create with this. And yeah, so I had to give this one a shout out as well in today's video. Alright, moving on to palettes that I've tried. Next up is going to be the Colourpop Mandalorian palette. This is a green and brown palette. The color story is really strong to that very green, kind of a minty green, I would say, like a minty grunge green, if that makes sense, and then brown. This color story isn't exactly my favorite, and Colourpop's formula isn't exactly my favorite, so I'm not mentioning this because it's like an all-time favorite and I love it. But if you're someone who likes soft tones when it comes to greens and browns, and you like those two combined together, you like that kind of almost minty green-esque with a little bit of grunge and then the brown, this is a great option to go for, because you definitely get that lighter tone, because that was my beef with this palette. Is just it was all very light and very pastelish and almost like disappearing on the eyes, and you guys know me, I like intense color. So this palette wasn't for me, but I did want to mention it because if you're not someone who likes super intense colors like I have on today, this would probably be a great option. And if you like those tones of green and brown but make it kind of grunge, this would be a fantastic option. Next up, I'm going to give it to the Tribe It by Juvia's Place. This is a kind of like coppery and green is what I thought when I opened this, because it has those, it's not really brown or gold, honestly. They're very coppery tone. And then the greens, and you have a varying amount of greens, or like a varying shades of green. You have a really dark kind of hunter green, but then you have more of a bright green or almost like neon. I don't even know. But then this shade, it's like, it's green, but it could also be yellow and whatnot. It's a very interesting color story. So very beautiful. And this is one of my favorite palettes when it comes to Juvia's Place. I've loved this palette for so very long. I remember having so much fun with it. Can't remember, did I ever do a 3 looks with this palette? I can't remember if I did. If I didn't, that's a shame, because all the looks I created with this palette, I always thought were so much fun, so creative, so vibrant in their color, and such a fun color story with the green and the coppery tones. So very pretty. So definitely had to mention this one as being a great two-tone type of color story option. And I know it is discontinued. Someone told me that they've seen this come back in stock a couple times. So something to, you know, keep in mind and keep out for if you do like this palette and might want to pick it up, is maybe sign up for any kind of email notifications. But I forgot to say this earlier. I'm not keeping any palettes out because they are discontinued, because I feel like I've done that in the past, and then either the ones that I'm including are all of a sudden discontinued by the time I go to upload it, or one that I left out because I thought it was discontinued is back in stock. So I'm just going to mention them in this type of video. I'll just mention anything in my collection. Alright, next up we're going to go on to another brown and green, but this is a different type of brown and green. This is Endangered Cosmetics Sea Turtle palette. This little guy right here, it's very different from the previous brown and green that we just talked about with the Mandalorian palette from Colourpop. As you can see, this is like brown and green with like color, intense saturation, and I love that. You guys knew me, so this is like a better version of the Colourpop one, but this is just such a nice color story. I've recently reviewed it on my channel, so if you want to see my thoughts on it, I'll leave that video linked up here, and you can also find first impressions on my channel if you want to see me create a look with this, because this is such a creative color story with it having such a strong green to brown color story that I just felt like all the looks that I did were so like different and creative, and I could get a lot of different looks even though it is just a 9-pan palette. She did a good job with choosing the colors in that I could, you know, kind of mix and match them up and create different looks with each of the looks that I did, and I love that about it. So this is a great color story. I know this is blue and this is a gold, so it's not like, again, you know, keep it loosely when I say two-toned eyeshadow palettes and that this is a brown and a green. I know there's other colors in there, but the theme and the strong pull of this palette I feel like was very brown and green, and when I was creating looks with it, those are the two combos that I kept coming up with when I had to finish looks. So that's why I want to mention this. She has a really nice formula when it comes to her shimmers and her mattes. Her shimmers are so nicely pigmented and so very smooth to put on. It's so beautiful. I had a great time with them, and then the mattes also blended beautifully, had no issues, and yeah, it's a great little palette. Definitely highly recommend, and a great option if you like that green-brown color story. Okay, this one's going to be a little bit of a cheat, but I think I mentioned it in my monochromatic palettes, so that's why I want to mention it here just to kind of carry through. However, when I opened it, it's not quite strict on the 2 colors of a color story, and let me just show you. This is the Nomad Iceland Fire and Ice palette, and when I talked about it in the monochromatic palette, I kept thinking like it was very blue and red, but when I opened it up and I was actually looking at it, I was like, there's a lot of other colors in there too. There's, you know, there's blue and there's red, or like warm tone, but you know, it's not strictly red. There's like the orange to red, and then also with the blue, it's like blue to green, but there's some purple up there. So this one's not super duper strict. However, I feel like this one with the color story, what sticks out in your mind is a very like blue and red color story. So maybe that's why I was thinking, oh, it's a great two-toned, color story type of palette that I can mention in this video. But upon looking at it, and especially comparing it to other palettes in my collection that I'm talking about here today, it's definitely not the strongest. But I did want to mention it because if those colors stand out in your head, or you just like the concept of having, you know, 2 drastically different colors in one palette, this is a great option because you have a lot of very cool tone colors mixed with the warmth in the middle, and it's just a lot of fun when you create looks. So yeah, wanted to mention this because I did mention it before, but not the best. I mean, I don't have the greatest memory, so should I be shocked that I misspoke? Alright, next up, this is from Gimme Glow as well. This is the Vivid Rose palette, and this palette is such a strong and beautiful, kind of cool tone pink and purple palette. This is one of the palettes I thought of when I was doing my original video with the monochromatic palettes. I thought of this one because it's so strong. You got your pinks and you got your purples up here, and maybe not strictly purples, but they have those lean towards the purples that I feel like it totally applies as being a very strictly two-toned type of color story. So I wanted to mention that here. Again, with Gimme Glow's formula, I can speak to this one because I have tried it and reviewed it. Her matte formula is really nice, very intense. I feel like some of the purples were a little bit drier, which I feel like purple can be a little bit dry, but I didn't have a problem blending it out, and I just found that I had to kind of pack it on a little bit more before blending. Something to keep in mind, but the shimmer is absolutely blinding. Like if you have never seen or tried Gimme Glow's shimmers, like look, I don't even know if you can see if it comes across in the viewfinder that well, but her shimmer formula As I've already said, they're one of my favorite because they're so intense and they're so smooth when you apply. Like a little bit goes a very long way, yet they're so shiny and they have so much color to them. I absolutely love it. So had to mention Vivid Rose. It was one of the, as I said, it was one of the first palettes that came to mind when I was doing this video. So definitely wanted to give them a shout out as a good palette and a good color story option if you're looking for a good pink and purple color story. Okay, next up is going to be a palette I haven't spoken of on my channel in a while, so I'm excited that I get to talk to you guys about it. But this is from Blush Tribe, which Blush Tribe is now discontinued. But this is a collab palette with Paulina, who, if you don't already know her on YouTube, I'll leave her link down below. But this is a collab palette she did with them, and she did a beautiful job creating a gorgeous kind of pink and green color story. This one is a little bit, yes, I realize it's like 3 colors because it's got the pink and purple and green. However, I still want to mention it because it's so strongly like cut down the middle when it comes to this color story. You got your greens over here and then your pink and purple over here. It still counts in my mind because anytime I would go into this palette, I saw the two groups very divided in this palette and very obvious, but they mesh and they pair and they create such gorgeous looks. I absolutely loved it. I think I have a video creating a look with this. Do I? I can't remember if I actually do. I think it might have been before I started to do like looks on camera. I can't remember. If I do have one on my YouTube channel, I'll leave it linked up here and down in the description box, but it's a gorgeous color story. You can't get it anymore. This has been discontinued for a while, but she did a fantastic job with choosing the colors in here. I love the amount of shimmers to mattes in here. Everything about this palette was very well done, and so I had to give it a shout out in today's video because I enjoyed it so much and it's got such a great color story. Moving right along, we have another Give Me Glow. This is the Extra Spicy palette, and this is a very strong red and orange color story. So if you're someone on the hunt for a red and orange color story, I think this is being discontinued or has already been discontinued, so check out their website quickly if you are at all curious, because this is a great, great red and orange palette. I absolutely enjoyed every look that I did with it. It was so much fun. It was such fall tones, so if you like those fall tones, you can mix a bit of brown in here even, and it would be even more fallish, but on its own, I felt like it was very fall-esque inspired, very like hot and spicy, obviously with the theme of it. It was a gorgeous palette, and I really did love it, and it has, as I said, as I've been saying throughout this whole video, strong tones. The color story just screams that orange and yellow, and it's just so much fun. I loved that there were more mattes to shimmers. I've already talked about their formula, so I'm not going to bore you. Definitely, like, the shimmers are so good. This one right here, so blinding. I should also say the Give Me Glow shimmers, I often use like the lighter tones as highlights. They work really well, and they sell highlights that I think it's like almost identical or just a very similar formula to their matte. They're not that far apart like formula wise, so often if I see an eyeshadow in a Give Me Glow formula that I like, I'll pop it on as a highlight, and it's so very blinding and so very beautiful. So this would be a color that I would use as a highlight, as an inner corner highlight, all that kind of thing, and it's just so much fun. So yeah, a fantastic orange and red color story option. A newer palette that has a two-tone type of color story is from Oden's Eye, and this is the Freja. I'm so sorry. I know people have told me how to pronounce that word, but I can't remember how to do the J. I am so very sorry, but it's a Cat's Breath palette. That's something I can handle, the Cat's Breath palette. But this color story, if you haven't seen the inside, is orange and green, and when I tell you that this was so much fun, it was so much fun. I did a look on my Instagram. I'll stick it up here just to show you guys, and it was the green and the orange. And I love the combination with the orange on the lid and the green kind of smoked out on the outer corner. It was so beautiful, and it's a look that I often think back fondly on, and like I want to like continue to recreate and combine the orange with the green in a future look because I just thought they paired together so beautifully. And I don't know, for whatever reason, like orange and green I don't often think to pair together, like the bright orange with the deep greens, but it was absolutely beautiful. And yeah, this is just a fantastic color story. If you like creative color stories and you want to be able to have those two strong colors in a palette to make you pair together, either, you know, keeping them separate and creating a very monochromatic eye look, or combining them in different ways to mix them up on your eyes, this would be a fantastic option. And it's definitely one of the palettes that I thought of when I was thinking of this video, but the formula in here is fantastic. Oden's Eyes mattes are so smooth and blendable. They're a dream to work with. I really do like them, and the shimmers are beautiful. They're a bit more like thin, or not thin, but like sheer-ish. They're just meant to be more sheer. Like, it's got all the shine, it's got all the sparkle. When you put it on, it's a little bit more of like a see-through type of sparkle, but still very pretty. But just want to throw that out there in case you're wondering if it's like super intense and pigmented and colorful, or if it's more of like that wash of sparkle and a more see-through formula. It's definitely more of the see-through formula, though you can build it up. Oh, I didn't want to clean my hands from the previous one, but you can build it up and get a really nice color. Moving right along, we're going to talk about the Tropical Skewer palette from DeDe Cosmetics, or DeDe Signature, I'm so sorry. But this palette has blue and orange combination, and that combination is a lot of fun, let me tell you. It has a black and a silver in there as well, but they still complement the orange and blue factor of this palette, so I feel like the looks, unless you're just using the black and the silver together, the looks that you create will lean very either orange or blue, depending on what you use. So that's why I thought this still qualified as being a two-tone type of color story. And yeah, this is a fantastic palette. One of my favorites from her whole Skewer collection because it's just a fun combination of colors with the orange and the blue. It's, again, a fun color combination to put those two together. I don't feel like I do that often. So having it in a palette and kind of forcing me to combine them together has made me realize how beautiful orange is with blue and green, as we've already talked about. But definitely something I'll continue to put together in the future because I had so much fun with this palette, and definitely is one I recommend. When talking about DeDe Signature's Fruit Skewer palettes, I would definitely recommend this one. It's such a fun color story, and I feel like very unique on the market. If you are new to her formula, these shimmers are so buttery smooth. Like, oh, look at that. So nice. And her matte formula is also really nice. Very pigmented, intensely pigmented. They can be a little thin in their like texture and whatnot, so I find that it's better to like pack it on and then blend, but they're still just so nice and pigmented and easy to work with. Look at that silver. Oh, so very pretty. So yeah, definitely one I did want to recommend and share in here because I enjoyed it so very much, and it's just such a fun color story. All right, let's keep it moving with something from DJ's Unique Boutique. This is the Reasons palette, and this was a limited edition last year. However, she did bring it back for this year, this holiday season. So as far as I know, it is available if you're curious. But this has a beautiful blue and green color story that was so very much fun. Yes, it's a little pop of orange, but it's only one color and a pretty large palette. So in my eyes, it's still qualified for a blue-green theme. And so I wanted to include it in here because it's a very nice palette. Has a really nice formula. The shimmers were really nice as well. I don't even know which color to pick, and I'm a mess here, but the shimmers were nice as well. They weren't anything like super sparkly and anything shifty, but they are very pretty when it comes to just intense color, like metallic, I guess is how I would describe it. It's very, very nice. A more of a fine type of metallic, but very pretty. And then the mattes also were really nice. They're that type of formula that's a bit thinner, so you want to pack it on and then blend. But if you do that, they show up really nice and intense. And I know I have a Instagram Reels or tutorial or something like that on this. Maybe I'll stick it in right here so you guys can see. Maybe I've already been sticking in here and you guys have been watching it, but that look was definitely my favorite that I created with this palette, even though like all the looks that I created with this palette were so much fun. So definitely wanted to recommend that here, especially now that you can get it again. I'm not sure if it's going to be permanent or just for the holiday season, but as of right now it is available, so definitely want to include in this video as a good option if you like a green-blue color story. Okay, and last up we're going to talk about the Menagerie Whalesong palette. This palette is a beautiful, grungy green and blue color story. So if you like bright, the Reasons palette's a great option, but if you like grunge, this is a beautiful option and is just so very nice. This is getting discontinued, so if you like it, definitely recommend checking it out now and maybe picking it up whenever they, restock it if it's out of stock, because I'm not sure exactly when, but it's not going to be permanent. They are phasing it out, which breaks my heart a little bit because I love this color story so very much. However, I have it, so I'm glad I have it, and I'll definitely treasure it extra more knowing that it's not available anymore. But I'm looking forward to seeing what else the brand does. But anyway, this color story is so very nice. The mattes in here are amazingly pigmented. They're very softly pigmented and intensely pigmented, so you want to be careful. You want to just tap in there and don't go crazy and pack it on, then blend it out. If you like more of a softer look, you could probably blend. You don't really have to like tap it down, but if you like intense color and you don't want any kind of sheer wash of color, tapping it down and then blending it out is the way to go. That's typically what I do anyway, because I like to get as much intense color as I can. But the shimmers in here are also like 50-50 for me. I wasn't a fan of this one, and this one I think I was so-so about. But these two I actually really did like. They're nice, and they were a different type of formula than Menagerie usually does. If you have the Annette Serenity palette, or the Serenity palette that Menagerie did in collaboration with Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner, the shimmers in her palette remind me of these two shimmers right here because they are intensely pigmented, which you guys know I like. They got nice sparkle to them. They're very smooth and easy to go on, and they're just so gorgeous and metallic. So I love these two shadows in the palette. But yeah, this is a great option, great color story, so much fun, so creative. And if you like the grunge and you are at all interested in green and blue, I feel like this is a must-have in your makeup collection. Alright, so now that I am completely a mess with random swatches all over myself, and yeah, I should also mention the Menagerie Whalesong palette will stain. It doesn't often stain my eyes, which is odd, and maybe it's because I put on eyeshadow primer, but anytime I have to dip into it with my hands, I usually come away a little bit stained, so something to keep in mind. But anyway, yeah, that is going to do it for my two-toned eyeshadow palette color story video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's just a fun video to get to sit back, and I always enjoy going through my collection and seeing what palettes like apply to the video ideas. So anytime I have a chance to do one of these, like I did with the monochromatic palettes and now that I'm doing with the two-tone color story palettes, I always have a great time. So if you have any other ideas that you would like to see me going through my eyeshadow palettes back there and sharing what applies, leave them down in the comments. I'm always open to hearing your guys' suggestions and what type of videos you would like to see. But yeah, that is gonna do it for me. Thank you guys so very much for watching as always, and if you want to continue getting daily content from me, I'm over on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92 over there, and I post reels, makeup pictures, flat lays, all that sort of thing. And yeah, with all that said, I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye.